Hey, everyone. I'm Summer. Welcome to my channel. Today I will share the design process of non-human characters in the cartoon Q style. I want to draw this character because I have been very fascinated by Maine Coons recently. I like her handsome appearance and extremely contrasting personality. Beautiful fur, angry eyes, and at the same time, her clingy personality. I think it's very interesting. So, I want to draw a character design mainly featuring cats. When it comes to cartoon and animated images of cats, the first thing that comes to mind is an animated series I watched when I was a child. Its protagonist was a black cat detective. It's been a long time, and I can no longer recall the content of the story, but this image is still imprinted in my mind. I searched for reference pictures of anthropomorphic characters again. During the process of looking for the reference pictures, there were many designs of characters mainly based on animals, and the degree of use of animal elements was also different. I chose the style that emphasized humanoid images more, and the part of designing character images completely using animal and biological elements. I will make more videos related to this content when I have time later. Friends who are interested can follow my channel. I hope this video is helpful to you who want to learn digital painting skills. Then let's start enjoying the wonderful design process. The design of animal personification usually gives a refreshing feeling and is more common in cartoon and anime works. Such anthropomorphic images often appear in Q-version game projects. In game design, such images are usually designed to be quite cute. Before practicing, it is still necessary to understand the rules of cartoon Q-version character design, whether it is a human character or an animal anthropomorphic character. All of these rules can be used. Cartoon Q-style designs usually have a head-to-body ratio of less than 5. This head-to-body ratio would be cuter and is also a proportion that many people like. The character images in many games and anime works are within such a proportion range. Different head-to-body ratios can produce different visual sensations. Their cuteness also varies. Generally speaking, the smaller the head-to-body ratio, the cuter the look will be. The costumes and equipment of cartoon Q-version characters are usually symbolically exaggerated, with exaggerated proportions and increased thickness of the designs. At the same time, the structure of the design will be simplified. Depending on the head-to-body ratio of the character, the extent of structural simplification will also vary. Generally, the smaller the head-to-body ratio of a character is, the more simplified its structure will be. The larger the head-to-body ratio, the closer it is to a realistic drawing style. After understanding these rules, let's experience the process of designing different head-to-body ratio styling concepts. First, draw a character with 3 heads and a left-right body ratio. Just like drawing a humanoid character, first design a basic character dynamic. Then, on this basic dynamic basis, I added costumes and equipment to the character. I chose a stance with not too much movement range. What I designed was a relatively anthropomorphic image, retaining only the key animal elements on the character's head, claws, and tail. Make it easier to identify what kind of animal this character is. First, determine the proportion, and then draw the basic body shape according to the human body proportion relationship of the 3 head-to-body ratio. The lengths of the arms and legs are also drawn in proportion to humans, and the parts of the arms and knees can also be designed according to the structure of humans. The facial structure can be appropriately exaggerated and structurally simplified. The cartoon shape design will increase the volume of the shape. I exaggerated its structure and thickness on the eyebrows. The size of the eyebrows was increased and the corners of the fur were strengthened to make him more prominent. The eyes of cartoon characters can also be a bit larger, and the overall proportion of facial features can be enlarged, while retaining the original structural characteristics of the animal's nose and mouth. The structure is simplified, and the proportion of the ears is also enlarged. However, attention should be paid to the relationship between the connection surface of the ears and the head. The coiled structure at the base of the animal's ears should also be noted. The tips of the ears can be adorned with lynx fur like that of a Maine Coon, but the appearance also needs to be adjusted according to the character's profession and personality traits. For my character, I want to design a more rugged image. To be a soldier using heavy weapons, and to use large and fast elements as the main graphic elements, I didn't add overly small elements, also to make the appearance more overall. Next, you can add costumes and equipment to this character. Since you want to design this character as a soldier, at this time, you need to think about what kind of equipment elements soldiers usually have. You can look for relevant reference pictures to get inspiration. I wore a tactical vest with many pockets for this character. Small tools, bullets, or grenades, and other things can be placed in the pockets. Because the character is designed in a cartoon style, I increased the thickness of the pockets to make each one look larger, since the character's body is relatively small. After adding a wide tactical vest, the remaining space on the front of the character becomes very small. To make the clothing wearing logic reasonable, I used the structure of the front and back two pieces of the tactical vest. The strip-shaped belts or elastic bands were linked. This kind of skill solves the problem of the rationality of the clothing, and at the same time, it can also make the shape have a graphic correspondence. The same logic applies to the belt part. The pants part needs to add rhythm variations. The upper body's shape doesn't have much impact on the rhythm of the outer contour. In the design of the lower body's shape, it is necessary to consider adding graphic variations of silhouettes. I tightened the trousers at the knees to add knee pads. Meanwhile, the pleats produced by the trousers could change the shape of the outer contour of the legs. I also added a small tool bag at the waist, also to change the rhythm of the outer contour of this part. For the shoe section, I designed a small boot with the ankle tightened and the calf part showing a tendency to spread outwards, which is also a rhythm change in the styling. The design of the shoe also needs to consider echoing the elements of the upper body. I added rectangular decorative patterns with lines, so that the elements can be more unified. Most elements of the character's body have been deduced, and a basic judgment on the character's profession can also be made. Next, the arms and weapons still need to be supplemented in design. Because the character's body size is relatively small, there are not many areas that can add design layers. Therefore, we need to highlight the main design parts and simplify the unnecessary elements. The upper body tactical vest is already a distinctive element, so I simplified the top and only added a short-sleeved t-shirt with a simple structure to this character. The choice of short sleeves was also to use the undulation of the cuffs to increase the variation of the outer contour silhouette. To give this character its own characteristics and showcase the traits of a cat at the same time, I added a small fish in the character's hand. What I thought was that he could use ammunition in the shape of a small fish because the tip of the bullet is pointed and the mouth of the small fish also has a pointed shape. This way, the function of the bullet can also be achieved and the design can be made more interesting. I haven't designed the main weapons and equipment for the character yet. I want to design a heavy weapon for him. I've seen similar designs in many films and TV series. It seems to be called a mortar. I lifted the character's left arm and carried this huge weapon on his shoulder. When designing weapons, the structure should also be simplified. In reality, there are still many small structures of such weapons. Because the characters themselves are in a cartoon and Q style, the shapes of the characters themselves are all simplified. In the design of weapons, it is also necessary to unify the characters and try to use large blocks of graphics for design. It should be noted that in game design, especially in 3D games, the weapons and props of characters need to be made into 3D models separately. In some types of games, the weapons of characters can be replaced, so the silhouettes of the weapons also need to change with. When drawing, do not forget to consider the overall silhouette of the character and weapon when they are combined. To give the weapon itself more rhythm variations, I added the element of the scope. To make the local area have raised undulations, I can also add some small details to the character. Currently, all the body parts of the character are mainly in the shape of horizontal lines, which looks rather monotonous. So I added an inclined bullet on the character's shoulder to change the relationship of a completely horizontal line. In this way, the inclined line and the inclination angle of the weapon can also form a new downward graphic trend. To make this character more individualistic, I added a lit cigar to his mouth, styled his hair in a slicked back style, and added a set of loose strands of hair. In this way, this character will look more rebellious and his personality will be more distinct. He can be a hot-tempered gunter. During battle, he can take the cigar in his mouth to light the barrel of the gun, and the small fish in his hand can be a bomb. When he is angry, he will throw it out to bomb the enemy. The enemy affected by the bomb can become stiff instantly and recover after 3 seconds. The cat's tail has not been drawn yet. Add one more tail. The direction of the tail can also express the character's mood at this moment. In this way, the design of my character is completed. To make the character cuter, based on this design, I reduced the head-to-body ratio of the character to 2 heads and body. The size of the head remained unchanged, but the overall body part was proportionally reduced to the size of 2 heads and body ratio. If the proportion is reduced even smaller, for instance, in an extreme 1 head-to-body ratio, although the design will become cuter, the focus of the drawing will shift to the facial expressions of the characters. The clothing and equipment parts need to be simplified more, or even just a simple graphic. The elements also need to be more symbolic. This is not the feeling I want, so I still chose a ratio close to 2 head-to-body ratio that can retain more design content. After the head-to-body ratio was reduced, the content in this look now seems quite abundant. In the state of small images, many elements are concentrated together, making it impossible to distinguish the specific elements. Therefore, we still need to simplify the shape structure, retain the main elements, and omit the unnecessary elements. I think simplification is also a difficulty in designing cartoon Q version characters. During the adjustment process, the structure of the clothing and equipment should be designed to be simpler. The volume of the equipment should be larger, and the thickness of the equipment should be increased. You can first think of children's toys. They usually have larger, thick coatings and volumes, and at the same time have smooth edges. The props in hand, such as fish, cannonballs, can be praised for their proportions. The cannon barrel can be enlarged, and the character's face can also be adjusted appropriately. Drawing the eyes a little rounder will make the character look cuter. Complex structures such as tactical vests can be omitted because, compared with tactical vests, the ammunition on the chest can better reflect the character's profession and also increase the variation of the appearance. Therefore, directly wearing a small t-shirt for the character can better highlight the element of ammunition. Sometimes, in the design process, subtraction is necessary. Many times, our designs look uncomfortable, which is very likely because there are too many elements in the picture, thus making the main and secondary elements of the design lack. And the key points that the design intends to express and highlight cannot be seen at a glance. For characters with a small head-to-body ratio, the design should also emphasize fun. More fish elements can be added. Some scattered fish-shaped shells can be placed on the ground. Patterns and designs of fish or water splashes can also be added to the character's pants or belt buckles. However, don't make it too obvious. Just add a dark texture. If it's too obvious, it will also change the density relationship of the picture. These are all some ideas. The specific situation still needs to be judged after filling in the basic color, in order to compare the differences between the shapes of different cartoon Q versions. I drew another row with 4 head and body proportions. I thought that this character wanted to have some differences from the previous cat soldier, and I made changes in the shape and clothing and equipment. I designed this character as a modern image. After determining the basic standing posture, I first dressed this character in a casual knitted vest, wearing a short-sleeved lapel shirt inside, with the collar protruding from the knitted waistcoat. This also adds more layers of variation to the neck area. The exposed front of the shirt is deliberately made in an asymmetrical length, and the cuffs are also designed with a rolled edge, which is also to enhance the fashion sense of this character. Perhaps this character could be designed as a fashionable makeup artist. For the pants part, if you want to make this character more fashionable, you can design them as leather pants or tight pants in special colors with some holes on them or designed patterns. At this moment, what came to my mind was the portrait of Lackfield, the classic look of black sunglasses and small braids. So I added a small braid to this character as well. The eyes were not drawn on the sketch. I was worried that there would be a significant repetition with the existing shape of the eyes after drawing. If necessary, a new layer can be added after the refinement is completed. Since I was thinking of a fashionable makeup artist, the character could have added elements and tools related to makeup in his hand. To add some fun, I didn't choose a regular makeup brush, but a relatively large makeup mirror, hoping to design this character to have a very beauty-conscious personality. His habitual action is to hold this small mirror in his hand and keep looking. In the other hand, a cosmetic case with the Hermes logo was added, and the letters of Chanel were also added to the clothing as patterns. I deliberately applied blush to this character, also to show that he pays great attention to his own image. I also want to reflect the personality traits of this character through these small elements. Since the character's design is not so exaggerated, I chose to use some small elements to represent the character's profession and personality. Then, on the basis of this 4-headed character, I designed a female character. It also retains the image features of a cat in the head and uses a human form for the body part. The body curves of women will be more obvious. There is usually a smaller angle between the chest cavity and the pelvic cavity, which can also make the character look more graceful. While adjusting the waist, the thighs should also be slightly thicker, which can make the character's waist appear slimmer. High heels are also a very useful element to reflect the gender of women. The arms of female characters should not be too long. Don't draw the shoulders too wide either. This character can change its style again. I designed this female character as a Western-themed archer and put an asymmetrical form of shoulder armor on her shoulders. It was paired with a corset that exposed the waist. The belt is also relatively simple, without too many complex decorations. Only simple geometric shapes are used for basic clothing cutting. The fabric skirt pieces hanging at the waist were also made in an asymmetrical form. A pair of high-heeled boots is on his feet. Wearing a wristband on the hand also serves a defensive and protective function. To reflect the profession of an archer, an arrow barrel has been added behind the character, and the character is holding a short arrow in his hand. This design doesn't exaggerate too much and doesn't use any special design elements. It is a very typical image of a Western archer, and the clothes he wears are also of a very conventional style. This picture is just intended to draw an image of a different gender. Then, based on the 4-head body design, I drew a 5-head body proportion repairman by changing the head-to-body ratio. The size of the head remains unchanged. The body part is proportionally enlarged to make the overall head-to-body ratio reach 5. For characters with 5 heads and bodies, the area occupied by the head has decreased, while the proportion of the body part has increased. As a result, the structure and details of the clothing and equipment need to be enhanced. With an increase in the head-to-body ratio, the amount of detail of the character is also closer to the real world. For the current diagram, the volume of the clothing is too large. The amount of detail is still insufficient, and the complexity of the equipment also needs to be increased. This is also the direction that will be drawn and adjusted. The character I designed is a maintenance worker. Regarding the style of the costume, the design is a short-sleeved small suit or a short-sleeved small coat with a knitted sweater worn inside. After the head-to-body ratio is increased, the layers of the clothes will become more numerous. I still kept the shirt collar inside the sweater. Thus, the jacket had at least 3 layers, and the complexity of the clothing also increased accordingly. The edge of the sleeve retains the upturned design, which also expands the silhouette of the outer contour. I added another hood so that the outer contour at the back could also have more variations. Some long band elements were designed on the clothes, which was also intended to add more linear attributes. The character is holding a huge wrench in his hand. The trousers are designed as a pair of loose work pants, and the trousers can be in the form of straps. Wear thick-soled Dr. Martens boots. The shoulder strap on one side of the trousers rolled down, giving the character a somewhat unkempt look. There is a pair of big and thick gloves on the hand, holding a large wrench and a hammer in the other hand. This character might be responsible for repair work. Maybe tools like welding will be used. Behind the character, a gas cylinder or a huge toolbox can be carried. I chose the toolbox element. A bunch of small parts were also hung on the toolbox. This character is a mobile repairman who roams the streets. It is necessary to consider some structures on the clothes and some styling elements, whether they are reasonable or not. There will be more things that need to be considered in terms of rationality. When images with different head-to-body ratios are arranged together, it can be seen that characters of the same race with different design concepts due to the difference in head-to-body ratios give people different feelings and have different degrees of cuteness. This kind of 5 head-to-body image with a large head-to-body ratio is still somewhat similar to realistic proportion design. However, in terms of the local design, the small parts are rather exaggerated. For instance, the 3-head ratio, the 2.2 head ratio, or even the smaller 1 head-to-body ratio. The overall proportion of the character and the ratio between the weapon and the character are all extremely exaggerated. The equipment of the characters, some small components, are also extremely exaggerated, which is a difference between different head-to-body ratio designs. The rhythm of different designs will be relatively strong in terms of the undulating relationship of the outer outline. At some turning points, some folded corners can be made. The turns of the folded corners can be slightly stiffer, and short straight lines can also be used. That's all for today's sharing. I hope everyone can feel the joy of painting during the process. I will bring you more wonderful content. Stay tuned.